When I was born, I was very self-aware of a lot of things. In the incubator, even before the incubator, really, that's a whole different story. In the incubator, I knew who my dad was. When he came into the hospital, I knew who the doctor was, I knew his role there in that situation. I knew who my mum was for whose reasons. I was inside for 9 months. But my sister that came into the room and my twin brother, I knew everything that was happening ahead of time, because I wouldn't say I alone planned it, but I kind of fully remembered having kind of rehearsed the situation, for lack of a word. Maybe that word is a pretty bad word, but I remember planning everything before being born. I remember going over it in my mind for the 6 months that I was in my mom's belly. I remember it all.
What if I told you that everything you know is just the beginning? Beyond the veil of the ordinary lies a realm of hidden knowledge, ancient wisdom, and untapped potential. A place where consciousness expands, reality bends, and the impossible becomes possible. You weren't meant to stay asleep. You were meant to awaken. Open your mind, remember who you truly are, and step with me beyond the frequency 369. Hey, before you start the episode, if you're on YouTube or Rumble, like, subscribe, and hit that bell. You want to make a comment? Go for it. It's America. If you catch me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, hit me with those 5 stars. I appreciate the support. Let's start the show. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Frequency 369. I'm your host, Cesar Pagan, and on today's episode, we are talking about outer body experiences, also known as OBEs. And today's guest is a special guest, Ryan Cropper. Ryan Cropper is an expert at out-of-body experiences. He has achieved this, from what I understand, a near-death experience when he was younger. I'm excited to have a conversation with him today, for him to share his background, his story, where he's at today, maybe even some incredible stories that he has to offer. So without any further ado, Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, all night last night was kind of crazy. I started doing some practices that has really refined and chiseled out astral projection and kind of inflated it in a certain type of way, because I'm trying to develop these other types of abilities alongside the city of astral projection. And to do that, you need to use certain bindus, and they access certain parts of your subconscious mind. And so if you imagine sitting there in a chair, you have these scientists around you just kind of throwing things at you to see what ability comes up next. Last night was crazy. It was just too many things happening at once. And so I'm a little tired, but without getting too off topic there, yeah, it's much I'm doing. Your name sounds awesome, by the way. Can you say it again?
What?
Is it Cesar Pagan?
Yeah, it's Cesar Pagan. Yeah.
Pagan.
I'm half Panamanian, half Puerto Rican. So my last name is Puerto Rican, Pagan, and then my first name, Cesar, was given to me by my mother when I guess the nurse had asked her, like, what do we call him? Because I have a twin brother, by the way. And
me too.
Yeah, awesome. I'm 2 minutes older. What about you?
I have no clue. We don't really.
Okay, I made that a thing, so I made sure that everybody knew I was 2 minutes older and stuff. But yeah, I guess my mom had like a C-section, and in Spanish it's called cesárea. So I guess that kind of triggers Cesar, which is Caesar, and there you go.
It's a solid name right there.
Yeah, man. I always introduce myself Caesar, like Julius.
Yeah. But I think your last name really just kind of blends it up nicely into a nice. It's great. I really
awesome,
like it.
Man.
So I was reading it and I was like, I don't understand how you say it. But then when you said it sounds like a whole different name.
Yeah, Cesar Pagan. Yeah. I love it. I appreciate it, man. That's awesome, man. Not a lot of folks really give some props to the name. So I think the first time that I heard my last name, I think it was back in the late 80s, somebody had asked me if I was a heathen. And I was like, I don't know what a heathen is. And then I started learning about pagans, and I was like, oh, dang. I was like, no. I don't think that's what I am. So then I figured it out as we grew up. So spelled the same, but pronounced differently.
I could see how they would come to that conclusion.
Yeah, it makes sense. No, so earlier you were saying that you were off topic and you're actually not. So I'm glad that you just went in with that. So let's get into it. First, go ahead and give us a little bit of introduction to those that don't already know who you are. Let them know who you are and how they can find you, and then we'll go into your backstory.
Yeah, so who am I? Interesting question. I remember having to spell my name for the first time and being given a name for the first time. I try to bring this up in a lot of people, like, can you remember when someone tried to get you to practice enunciating your name and you would forget every now and then, before you had an identity or a favorite color or dress sense or anything like that, culture, you were happy as you were without any of that. And I have always been that way from the very beginning, super just content with being, with not giving a second thought to who I am, but rather just being, And when I was born, I was very self-aware of a lot of things. In the incubator, even before the incubator, really, that's a whole different story. In the incubator, I knew who my dad was. When he came into the hospital, I knew who the doctor was, I knew his role there in that situation. I knew who my mum was for obvious reasons. I was inside her for 9 months. But my sister that came into the room and my twin brother, I knew everything that was happening ahead of time, because I wouldn't say I alone planned it, but I kind of fully remembered having kind of rehearsed the situation, for lack of a word. Maybe that word is a pretty bad word, but I remember planning everything before being born. I remember going over it in my mind for the 6 months that I was in my mom's belly. I remember it all. And so being born, and even growing up for first, actually, it keeps going, but it's gotten less and less as I've gotten older. But even growing up, it's like a checklist. Okay, now this experience has happened. Now this experience has happened. And I'll go to sleep and meet with my spirit guides. And at the time I didn't call them spirit guides, so I didn't even know what that was. But they would, have talks with me. Has this happened yet? You're doing good. And, that was all happening. I didn't even know I was asleep, to be honest with you. I don't think I was. I would just go to bed. Most times I won't even close my eyes, and beings would come into the room. And other than the usual guides that would touch bases with me, I'd also see other things in the house. I would see dead people. At the time, I didn't think they were dead people. I just thought they were normal people that everyone could see. I remember there was this woman that would come in into the living room and just stand there. Not necessarily look at us, but she would just stand there. And I thought she was part of the family. There was this really tall man that would come in to our bedroom and, have to do this to duck underneath the door frame and just look at us. He was bald. We managed to get a picture of him using a Nokia. It really scared my parents because they actually knew who he was. They said it was a close friend to my dad's, and he had passed away. They wouldn't tell us the specifics, but they just basically mentioned as to how he was a protector, he was watching us, and how there was some type of, arrangement there that was unspoken, And so these things would happen. I would see ghost animals, dogs, running upstairs and going through my sister's door into her room on occasion. And I honestly thought I was just going to bed. My parents would put me to bed and I was still awake. And all this stuff was happening around me, And if I was literally still awake, walking around the house throughout the evening, I would see these dead people, like the woman. I just thought it was natural. Until I watched horror movies. And then they told me a different story, that these things are dead people, call them angels, entities, Grim Reaper. They started telling me what these things are. And then my experiences started going south, mainly because I could identify them now. Yeah, like, you're not supposed to be here. And so that became kind of dark for a while, but also kind of fun. Well, and it remained kind of light as well, because of the whole host of other beings that were actually there to help me, to watch me, to make sure everything was going as planned. But now it's just peppered in with a little bit of horror, And so, I remember watching American Werewolf in Paris, was it? Or American Werewolf in London, something like that. And there was the scene where his friend tries to whistle and his eye falls out. And I think it was either around that time, let's say probably maybe the next day or that same night, ended up astral projecting without realizing I was astral projecting, but just trying to sleep and seeing a dead person in my room. And I was like, oh, you look just like that person on TV. Many experiences like that where I was putting two and two together. So I naturally started to develop some fear towards this stuff. And then I turned 13. I said the colors in my head started changing. I guess that's puberty. School became very different. There was more of a pressure to be someone or to have a good group of friends. And then all the stuff that was happening in the home as well. So there's a fair share of domestic abuse and outside of the home as well. Different areas of my hometown, I'd be bullied. Me and my brother would get picked on. What may have you. This was before we started working out and learning martial arts, and so we were pretty much targets. So like everyone, it was interesting. What ended up happening was the pressures in and outside the home, as well as school, as well as this mental change, started within me a form of suppression. I started blocking memories of traumas, as well as to the events around them, be that these supernatural experiences. Remember, I didn't even know were astral projections or anything. I didn't have any kind of foundation other than horror movies, and that started happening a little later. So those started disappearing. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was in bed, and one of my guides at the time, with me for a while, he materialized in the middle of my bed. First, as little tiny dots, little sparkles. You know what you see in the pitch black when your eyes are closed, that visual star? He would show up made out of that, and he would take on the form of something. I remember when he's learning this, take on the form of something that would settle me. And at the time, he chose a combination of Casper, the friendly ghost, and the Smurfs. So if you imagine Casper, but glowing green, but the outline is of a perfect Smurf. You couldn't see this hat like this. It was just perfect outline. Cartoon eyes. And he would come in static, turn into a little green orb, and then just forming himself slowly as he's climbing up my duvet. Look at me and say, "Hey, Ryan." He would talk to me forever and just calm me down so that I would go to sleep. The last night I saw him, he said, "You didn't need me anymore," or "You don't need me anymore," and he just disappeared. And I just fell asleep super upset. I think that was around 12, 13 as well, when all of this stuff was happening in my brain. 3 years later, I drowned to death. I went to a local quarry with some friends, and they were throwing out beer cans, and we have to swim out there to retrieve the beer cans. It's like a show of strength, you know, testosterone. And I can't swim very well. I definitely can't keep myself afloat, and I don't tell anyone this. And so I try to play the game. They're well ahead of me. I finally catch up, and then they decide to swim back around a certain part of the quarry, to the point where I lose sight of them as I'm trying to catch up. So if you imagine, I'm going over there, they've already rested, they're fine, they've had the drink of the beer can, now they're swimming away, I'm trying to catch up. They lose sight of me, I go down, I lose all my senses, one by one. It's very painful, it's nothing like you see on TV, drowning. I end up hitting the bottom of the quarry. The last sense I recall was hearing my body hit the ground, I believe. And it's bizarre because at that point I'm thinking, oh, well, I should be worried because that was a pretty far fall, right? But my mind's already kind of like, whatever. The worst is behind me now. I find myself in a black space where I can feel the presence of something, but I can't see it. It doesn't use words, it uses feelings that can be interpreted as words, like very precisely, you know? And that is actually a common thing in the astral plane, I've noticed. I find myself in this darkness, and almost like an imaginary line was drawn in the sand in front of me. And it says, if you want, you can go now. You don't have to deal with your life, it's all behind you. The pain is completely gone, and you can move on. And I say to myself, what about my family? It's not very fair on them, right? They're going to have to go their whole lives trying to grieve this experience. But he's like, don't worry about it. They'll deal with it throughout their life. And if they don't, they'll deal with it within their afterlife, you know, and maybe even their future lives. So I think about it, and I seriously consider just leaving. And I take a step and I'm about to just cross that line. And then all of a sudden I see memories blowing up in front of me in this dark space. Not my entire life, but like important memories of my girlfriend that was on holiday at the time. And I wanted to see her again. And I saw my dad, who, its particular memory was him pushing me into the ground with his fingers till I was on the floor, blocking me from getting up. It was in front of my front door in the house near the hanger and all the shoes. And I'm sat there. My mom is watching, and she wants to say something, but she can't because she's scared. And she's kind of a little angry at the fact my dad's doing this as well, but she kind of just, and just goes upstairs and lets him do it. And he's saying, you'll never amount to anything in life. And you just keep saying it. It's like a mantra. He says it over and over again. It was always like that. And I just remember being so mad. I was seething with hate. Like feel it in my mouth, I was gritting my teeth. And I remember seeing this memory and thinking, I want to prove him wrong. I don't believe that. I'm pretty sure I can do whatever I want. I'm not an idiot. I can think straight. And that's all he just kept basically trying to reinforce. And so those two memories were enough for me to change my mind. Took a step back, and just like that, I was in my body again, laying at the bottom of the quarry. But now I think I'm dead, because to my shock and horror, I don't need to breathe. I don't feel my body, and I feel completely fine. So I swim to the surface. It takes a while, and I eventually break the surface of the water. And when I break the surface of the water, all of what I felt came rushing back. The weak body, dull, painful muscles. As whilst I was drowning, it felt like all the oxygen left my body, and my muscles started seizing, and I started contorting. All of that pain rushed back, and I kind of doggy paddled my way to the surface, climbed up the little face of a cliff, and I collapsed on the floor and threw up. My friends were like, what happened? Where'd you go? It's been ages. I said, I don't know. I don't know how long I've been gone for, but what I do know is that I just died, and some of them believed me, some of them didn't. Some of them laughed at me. Some of them were like, call an ambulance. And yeah, that was pretty much that experience. Some more friends showed up and they're like, hey, why aren't you swimming? I was a ghost, white, pale. Friend Max was like, he just drowned. He's not going to go back in the water. So I go home about 2 weeks later. Maybe it's like synchronicity or something. Perhaps I'm pretty sure I looked it up. A little bit of both, maybe. Because X-Men was coming out on the theaters, like different X-Men movies, and I looked up how to get certain abilities. It's like something in my mind woke up to wanting powers. It was very bizarre. And it could have been influenced by my environment, actually, come to think of it. So I look online and I look at the most realistic powers because I'm very skeptical to most things. I'm not entirely sure why, but I'm kind of scientific. And I just want to see someone who can actually do something that's realistic. So I'm looking at monks, the meditation, and what can allow them to levitate off the ground or be invulnerable. And I write a list in my book about all these abilities that I want, the ones that I could see as being real. And then this was during the 2 weeks after I came back from quarry. At this stage, I'm 16, just going into college. Like literally during this stage, I find myself lying in bed and I start recalling memories that were suppressed. And they keep coming up, nightmarish memories. I then decide to, well, I don't want to jump a little ahead, but they keep happening. I keep talking about them to my brother in college, our first year of college. And he says it's kind of strange, but he doesn't really pay any attention. He doesn't pay it no mind. And then I start astral projecting by accident. And I don't know what it is still. I'm 16. I don't know what it is. I'm lying in my bed. I believe I'm teleporting. I'm in bed. 1 second, I hear this roaring noise in my head, this crazy vibration, and I find myself materializing at the foot of my bed, and I'm looking through my hand. It's like static, blue static. It shows up and it disappears. It shows up and it disappears. And I'm like, okay, this has to be teleportation. Like, I've been trying teleportation. At the time, I found a Russian dude, and he was teaching teleportation. Downloaded it and watched all of his classes. So like, this is what it must be. I found myself in bed again. Actually, I should probably finish that story because there's more that happens there. I materialize at the foot of my bed, and at my window, there's a bright light that just engulfs the entire section of the room. So my room is like two windows either side. The bed's at the far end. So I'm walking, I see this light. To the right of me, there's a mirror. I'm looking at my eyes, and my eyes are shrinking incredibly small. I think to myself, well, now I'm blind, but I keep being pulled to this light like a moth to a flame. And then I remember getting really close, and all of a sudden, in hindsight, I was thinking about where I just came from, the bed, that whole ordeal there. Went back to my body, but I thought I just dematerialized and went back into my bed. And then I woke up. I was incredibly nervous and excited at the same time. I went to sleep, woke up, told my brother about it the next morning. I wore a leather jacket because I thought I was badass. And I was like, yeah, got power now. And again, X-Men pretty much burrowed itself into my brain. They wear a lot of leather back then. So I walk into college, I tell my brother about it, and he's like, you're dreaming. It's not real, you're dreaming. I'm like, no, I definitely did something. This has never happened before. I don't know what. I've done something. I've teleported. But yeah, he doesn't believe me. He didn't believe me for like 4 years, even after I figured out what it was. I looked it up online. I kept looking into abilities on the internet. It's like I was drawn to them even more now. And I came across Professor Xavier, and his main ability is astral projection. And I'm like, that sounds exactly like what happened to me. And so now I'm very curious. During this time, more memories have surfaced, and I want to be able to do this on purpose. I realized that it was the memories coming up that actually triggered this astral projection in the first place. My body can tell the difference between the past and present moment. So the moment I went to bed, started seeing these memories, my body knew exactly what to do, just out of instinct. I intentionally brought up more memories to use as, well, reference material for my brain. I was like, let's see if I could poke the bear and have it happen again. And it did. It kept happening over and over and over again, more and more astral projections. And then I was like, okay, let's come up with a system. So at first, I would try to put myself in similar situations that I was in the past that triggered astral projection, the astral projection ability. One such experience was I'd be in my bed and I would have the door ajar because my mom would leave it open, so I wasn't in the dark. So I was afraid of the dark. And I'd wait for my dad to come upstairs. I could smell his alcohol from upstairs. It's getting late. He's going to come upstairs and I'll be fearing for my life. I don't want him coming into the room. So I would just what? Crack in the door. My attention will be outside my body. So I'm looking at something outside of me as I start falling asleep. Lo and behold, I'd astral project. And so I knew the mechanism that was triggered by my circumstance. So I tried recreating it. I did the exact same thing. I'd leave my door ajar, put the light on, and go to sleep like that. And I ended up astral projecting. It was clunky. Definitely by no means perfect. But then I came up with even more techniques because those ones inspired anxiety and states of fear that came from my past. So I came up with different techniques that didn't do any of that, but centered around the same type of idea. I then ended up developing a conditioning process because I realized that if my awareness just needs to be outside my body, then I just need to come up with techniques that encourage that. And so I came up with a plethora of techniques to exercise this ability to stay outside of the body, have my attention outside of the body. I then came up with a 10-step conditioning process at around 17 to 18, which I used on myself repeatedly to the point where I no longer needed to do a technique to leave my body. I could just lie down and slide out. It literally made it so that the astral projection state was somewhat of a permanent state in my being. And now this was cool because I've removed the anxiety and now all I need to do is just lie down and want to do it. And I could just slide out. From there, a whole bunch of adventures happened for a while, most of them up till I was 24. And then I started teaching it, and because I started talking about my experiences online, just out of sheer excitement. I remember seeing 13 Signs of Astrology at the time in Macalesi and being admired at the fact that they could even speak on camera. I couldn't do that at all. My first video, I wish I kept it now. I was intentionally away from the camera like this, and I'd done it on purpose so that the lighting in the room would hide my face. So I didn't want to make contact with the camera, eye contact with the camera. So, and I was mumbling, I wasn't speaking straight. I watched these two people online do it like it was effortless, and they inspired me to try it because I wanted to break out of my shell. And I also wanted to do that just to tell people what I was going through because my brother wasn't believing in me. My friends weren't believing in me, like the few that I did tell. And no one really knows what I'm doing outside of that little group. Oh, I start getting into personal development, which is perfect because it coincides with astral projection quite a bit. If your mind is all messy and you're going through some dark things, that stuff's going to be projected out into the etheric plane. You're going to see all that. It's going to be a tough experience. And so I'm like, okay, well, this is perfect. It's going to make my astral projections better. It's also going to make me a better speaker and just better overall when it comes to social dynamics. I'm in public services in college, and so I need to learn how to speak to people. It all just goes together like a neat little bow. And what ends up happening is that people start commenting. They say, hey, I want to learn how to do it too. And so I start teaching people for free. At first, my YouTube was the free platform. I would just give out methods and techniques and advice. I did this for a while until I ran out of time. Yeah, YouTube was just all that I was doing. And people in the comments were saying, hey, and other social media platforms were saying, hey, I need to speak to you. I need you to teach me on like in person, either in person or on camera. So I was like, sure, fine. I had a thing against money, making money online. So everything was free. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Problem was well, there were two problems. One, I was draining myself. I was like super tired. And two, I was putting myself in a position where I would be mistreated by people. When you give things away for free, it attracts a certain type of person that will be very competitive with you. They will laugh at you, make jokes. They will undermine you, your intelligence, and just basically try all these different things. And it's really horrible. It's coming from the dark side of people, like dark side of their mind. But it's like they're attracted to people that are online and trying to be comfortable and being expressive. They just want to beat you like a dead horse or try to take you off of whatever high you're on. They don't like seeing people happy, basically. And I got a lot of that coming through. More than 50% of people that were speaking to me was just because they didn't necessarily like me. They just wanted something from me. And they also wanted to kind of kick me a little bit too. And so that kind of started changing my feeling a little bit towards YouTube and just kind of wanting to be out there. And, when I think about it, I guess it was during the time when the internet became quite toxic. Like now, the internet's pretty bad. It's very different compared to how it was back in the day. It was very supportive compared to today, at least. But yeah, I started attracting all these people. And then I remember her name. I would say her name for privacy reasons, but it was like my first actual client. She was business orientated. She came to me and she said, Ryan, I want you to I want to have more lessons. I said, can't. I'm tired. I gotta go to sleep. I have all these things going on tomorrow. I can't be here right now. She goes, I will pay you $200 for an hour of your time. And I said, I can't do that. That's not fair. You're like a friend to me. I can't do that, right? And then I sit on it for a few days and she keeps asking. She goes, $300 for an hour of your time. Eventually I say yes, but I lower the price a little bit. And then she convinces me to start charging for my services. She says this way you'll get people that are serious. You won't get anyone that's gonna try to abuse your time. And you could start, using it to afford a better camera and things can get better for you. And that's exactly what I did. And I think it was maybe 4 years later, same person. She's been talking to me for a long time. Now we've covered other areas of her life. She goes to me, Ryan, you should register as a business because you haven't been paying taxes and you should be, registered as a business. She gives me a name. So I'm like, I don't know what I am. I don't know what name I should go by. She goes, what about spiritual life coach? I'm like, okay. And so we used that for a while. I've recently, over the past month, changed it because ChatGPT says that I'm more of a mentor at this point. Because I'm teaching from my experiences, whereas a coach does. The coach does it a little differently, And so that's pretty much what ended up happening. And I just kept going on YouTube. I built a little following. Gone to retreats. I've gone and done some talks. I've been on the Vice documentary. And I've appeared in their blog. At one point, I was one of the top 5 most, I guess you could say, I don't like using the word popular, but popular people for the year when it came to Vice's circle, just because of I got the most attention. And I know why. It's because I talked about astral sex. And whenever you talk about sex online, you get people's attention. And that actually kind of bothered me a little bit. And I didn't want to be on Vice again because of that. I told them this huge story about how astral projection can lead to telepathy, and it can make you become super aware and have an awakening. You realize you're more than who you think you are. And all they did was chop it up to take certain parts that they knew was going to do well. And it made my image change for a little period of time online. It changed the kind of terrain in my orbit. But, it's marketing. You kind of live and you learn about these things. And now I'm much more involved in the process when it comes to, someone approaching me and like, hey, let's do a documentary. I'm like, why do you want to do the documentary? Is it to make fun of me? Is it to use me for your own purposes? Like, what's going on here? Recently, like over the past, it's very new now, right? We're just in the new year, January. So February last year, I started doing a long-term astral projection coaching program, which is everything that I know about astral projection given to a person. Very audacious. It was way too much information. And a lot of those 6-monthers ended up being yearly clients or yearly students. I had double the time. So I'm going to have to change some of the information there to make it more feasible. I've also understood that people, they have a life, they have things that they need to do. 6 months was actually pretty long. I might have to make it shorter or figure out some other way of getting this information out because it's a lot at this point, Still learning, still doing things when it comes to astral projection. And I've noticed the more I start developing in certain areas, the more the astral projection starts changing. It's like something that keeps evolving, If you just have the one ability, you can get pretty far with it to the point where you leave your body all the time, go wherever you want, you can fly, you can figure it out, But you start developing other abilities and you start to see how they kind of coincide with each other and they start to take where you were initially to a whole new level. And so I have plans, but we'll see what happens, I suppose.
Yeah. Ryan, first of all, just fascinating. I was absorbing everything that you were saying because I was just imagining some of these stories, some of these explanations, some of these situations. I was just imagining what that would look like if I was experiencing it myself. Before we get to the other abilities that may have been awakened in you through doing astral projection, let's break down some of the things that you covered here earlier. So, and this is just for people who are just listening about this experience for the first time. So from your experience and your understanding, is there a difference between an outer body experience, the term, and then there's astral projection, and then there's a near-death experience? Like, is there any similarities between the three? Are they all in different stages or mindsets, or is it just three different ways of saying the same concept?
Well, what's going on there is you're getting more specific, and near-death is quite different as well. It's like, okay, out-of-body experience is quite vague in that can encompass a whole range of things. For example, your ability to leave your body, you can do that in many different ways. And it's powered by your solar plexus chakra, which is your will center. It's also your sense of drive. When you look at the terms for that city ability and how that specific chakra triggers that ability, and just, if you look at the 8 cities, and you look at the chakras that are responsible for them, that particular chakra, it will just say the ability to have one's mind leave the body, which is also very vague. And so there's a lot of ways you can do that. There's astral travel. So you're looking at more remote viewing. And that's without having your consciousness shift into, we'll call it consciousness for now, shift into another vehicle. Yep. What I mean by that is you have multiple vehicles, multiple energy vehicles, for your mind to shift into and use to enter into a different facet of reality, whether it's the etheric plane, the astral plane, the causal plane, emotional, mental plane. You have a body for each of those places of existence, and your mind needs to shift into these bodies to experience these different places, right? And so you can look at all of those as out-of-body experiences, and you'll be right. It's your mind leaving the body. but it's just using
Ryan,
vehicles to do it. Yep.
Okay, so you're saying that there's different vehicles when you astral project. There's different vehicles that you can get into for different experiences. Like, can you elaborate? What do you mean by different vehicles? Are there astral bodies or vehicles just waiting for us to take over in order to experience some particular plane of existence? Like, can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by
you
vehicles?
have to develop it. It's kind of like the Dantian, but the Dantian isn't developed right away. You have to build it, to build chi in that area of your Dantian, where your navel is. Similar with the astral body. The astral body, it exists, you have one, but it needs to be given shape and form. You also need to train your awareness to stay conscious outside of the body. Yeah. So most times, if you were to astral project to pull someone out and they don't astral project, you'll see their astral body lying there. Sometimes it'll look like them. Other times it'll just be like a rainbow-like energy because it doesn't have much form yet. But they're not in their astral body. Their astral body is just there. And the Native Americans like to refer to it as the dream body because it could be used to build your dreams. So they say that your mind is in your astral body when you're sleeping, and it's creating the dreamscape for you to experience whilst you're sleeping, whilst you're lying there in your bed. And so everyone has an astral body. It's an energy in you that is perfect for the astral plane. The conditions of this particular type of energy in you is perfect for the astral plane. And so you need to be able to use it. To be able to use it, you need certain experiences. Most people, they are able to develop this astral body just by lucid dreaming. It's like the ability of being aware inside of a dream space tunes it up a little bit, just enough to have you start having spontaneous astral vision experiences.
I got a question for you, Ryan. For some, let's visualize something here. For a first timer who's somehow either by accident or on purpose has left their body and they're now in their astral body, what does that look like? For those that don't even understand what that even is or what that would look like what is that? What can you explain what that experience maybe would feel, would look like, and then a little bit more extra that you may have for us on that?
So really, I mean, there are some things that will be across the board applying to everybody, but really it's based on when you astral project, your sense of self, and your energy. When it comes to just across the board, things everyone should be able to relate to. If you are new to astral projection, your energies are not refined or strong enough to leave the body for a long period of time, as well as to be able to navigate properly without feeling like you're in the gravity chamber in Dragon Ball Z, for example. You'll feel like there's a huge amount of pressure on you and you're kind of stuck. When you look in the mirror at yourself during these times, you can look very flaccid. You can look like your skin is falling off your body, and you can look like Mr. Fantastic. So maybe your head is touching the ceiling and you're looking at your feet on the floor like, what the heck? Your torso is very long. Or your eyes, in my case, were very, very small. That could also be because the astral body tends to shape itself around, your expectation of your astral body. In my case, I was looking at a bright light, and so I thought, this is really bright. Looked in the mirror, my eyes shrank into themselves. And so, depending on if you can hold yourself, the idea of yourself very strongly, and how much energy you have, and that will then determine how comfortable you are in the astral plane, that'll determine your mobility, as well as to how clear you look, how good you look. Otherwise, if you're all clunky, you can not only come out looking flaccid and stretchy, but also maybe look like a shadow being, at which point you'd be very slow moving. That tends to happen in the etheric plane though. And what else? You might look like a skeleton. It really just depends on your perspective on how you think you should look based on the current circumstance.
Okay. So it sounds like what your intention is, like, I guess if someone is practicing or trying to leave their body, let's say they have a method already that they have in place, they should be thinking of that I want to look like how I look now. Like, I don't want to be distorted. Like, can they willfully, with the intention, say, this is how I want to appear? Is that
and that's what you do right before you astral project. If you just sit there on your bed, in front of a mirror, preferably like a vanity mirror, so you can see your whole body, just take note of how you look and really affirm to yourself, this is how I look, this is how I feel, so that you're connecting it to a sense of energy, and then lay down. And before you get out of body, just take your arm out of the body and look at your hand and make sure it looks the same way that it looks in real life. Whatever you're wearing, make sure you can see it. Do not think about your physical body. Don't think this is my physical body, because then you'll go back to your physical body. Instead, and this is really important, whatever you see in the astral plane, look at that as a new body and ground yourself in the knowing that that is a separate body that can live independently and function independently from your physical body, and get used to that. Because what's going to happen is then you're going to build a section in the brain, a little room in the brain that tells itself that they are two different vehicles, and even though they look similar, they're not related. And then you'll be able to astral project for long periods of time. Because in the beginning, a lot of people, as soon as they see themselves, oh, my eyes look a certain way, bang, in their body, because they're thinking about their eyes. But if you look at it and think, oh, the energy, my astral body looks pretty cool, you understand intimately that it's just energy in some type of a form, a thought form of a, in a sense, not literally a thought form, but your thoughts giving form to this energy. Maybe you can give it a different eye color, just so that you realize that it's different from your physical body. You'll do great.
Interesting. I appreciate you explaining that. So it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, that you still have your brain, like the way you think right now as we speak, you're still the same person when you are now in this astral form, or no?
It's very interesting to say that. So basically, what you are right now isn't a person, and you're not just using your physical body right now. You're, for better lack of a word, a mind. I know some people look at the word mind and think brain, but just look at it as, and this is something that's on the internet a lot nowadays. It's been on the internet for a while, but when you see someone, you feel yourself in them, and in between, it's just a whole bunch of noise, different packaging. Like when I look at you, and I look at you a certain type of way, I can see myself there. And I'm not talking about I used to be like you type of self, no. I'm literally meaning my mind is your mind, but the packaging is different. And that packaging is your story. It's how you shape your beard, your goatee. It's everything about you. That's all things that you've seen online, all people that you've met. You've seen them. You've seen these ways of being, and you've held on to those ways of being as a form of a thought, or as a thought, quite literally as a thought. So you'll see someone who does podcasts, like Joe Rogan, for example. You see how he's doing it. You're like, oh, that looks cool. That image is a thought. Everything that comes with it is a thought, from how they're speaking to how they're interacting with each other. And you hold that in your mind. You then, as a mind, think, I want to do podcasts. Your brain takes that information, that thought, and projects it in front of you. And then you shine yourself through that. And you do that a lot with so many different types of thoughts that you've been thinking throughout your whole lives. Everyone has been thinking throughout their entire life. And this builds a sense of self. It builds a sense of self when it comes to how you think you should act, how you should feel, your belief systems. During experiences with people, how they've made you feel, those feelings don't disappear. Like if someone said to you, you're ugly, and you believe it, and you know what you look like because you look at yourself every morning. And so that emotion that you're now feeling in that experience has now been attached to an image of yourself. So you're taking emotional content with a picture. You then identify with that on a subtle subconscious level. You then walk away from that person. Now, a very small part of you feels ugly because you've changed the image that your awareness is shining through. You've changed the content. You've added different thoughts to it. Yeah. So you're building throughout your life this kind of subconscious thought form, this idea of you that you can become aware of very easily if you just close your eyes and try to find your sense of self. If you really tear it apart, you'll find it's just a collection of thoughts. And these thoughts are just thoughts that you've had in the past that aren't you. They're just moments of thinking that you've then identified with and created this kind of egregor with, it's kind of thought form with. And so the thing is with astral projection is when you leave the body, you become that thing that collected all those thoughts. But you leave the thoughts behind the more you astral project. More of that just stays behind. When I first started astral projecting, my character completely changed. Did a 180. How I spoke changed. How I dressed changed. How I introduced myself to people changed. People were like, you're changing. What's going on here? I was just dropping a lot of weight. I was dropping a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas of who I am. And this happened unconsciously, but instantly, because I was getting away from the brain. The brain thinks too much. The brain has all the thoughts. It's like, well, the brain processes the thoughts. It processes the information. And so further away you get from your body, the more of yourself you actually become. You start becoming, I just call it mind. And again, not in the same sense that mind is the brain, but it's the same thing that I see in you when I look at you. And I'm sure if you look at something long enough, you'll also feel. It's the same part of you that exists within many different dream continuities. So as you're dreaming and the theme changes, you become different people. Maybe you're a cast member of The Walking Dead, zombies everywhere. And then the next phase of your dreams, you're a superhero. Then you're in a relationship. Maybe you're a dad. Packaging changes every single time, but you stay the same. If you can identify what you are that stays the same every single time, you'll wake up here like, oh wait, my packaging changed again. I'm still here. That me that never changed. You know, you've just gone from a numerous dream continuities to now this dream, and now you can identify what you actually are. And the more you astral project, that happens again. Now you've just added another plane of reality that you're shifting into, and now you're really kind of naked. If you want to get really good at this stuff, go into the astral plane without an identity. Practice Zen meditations first, then go over there, see what happens. It's really interesting as to what you end up experiencing, because your brain, the monkey mind, isn't projecting all these thoughts. It also changes where you go, because now you're just being like pure mind floating around. I like to refer to it as mind, again, for lack of a word, and not consciousness or awareness. Because if you identify with consciousness, you got to think of it like this. If your consciousness, well, I should say, let's rephrase this. You can't be consciousness because you have the ability to become unconscious. So it stands to reason that's not you. You can't be awareness because you have the ability to become unaware. So it stands to reason that you're not awareness. So then what are you? You get to this nice blank state, which is actually the answer. It's what you are. It's the same feeling that you'll feel every time you actually identify what you are in these dream continuities, or while you're astral projecting. When you're astral projecting, that's all you feel. You feel it coming out of you. It's very strong. It's like a presence. You also feel it in the walls. You feel it all in the astral plane. Because as you go into different subtler realms, you feel your mind in everything. This is why some people think they're lucid dreaming when they're astral projecting, but they're not, because they can't change the astral realm that much. They can project things into it, but they can't really change the structure, unless you want to create a crack in time and space and travel somewhere. But ultimately, you start to feel yourself in these higher realms. Their vibration is higher. Your vibration has gone up because you're not identifying with the character. So you sync with the realm that you're in better. You can communicate with it better. In this realm, you could do the same thing, but a lot of people can't do that because they've numbed themselves quite a bit, their bodies. But for the most part, say like 85% of the time, it's their beliefs. They are intentionally ignoring the fact that they can connect to things. I said it the other day to Charizard. I said, I think everyone is telepathic, but they're ignoring it, you know? And so it's like, it's just, but I say all this to say that right now you have an astral body that you're moving. You are mind in the body, which is the same thing you are when you astral project. So nothing much really changes when you leave the body. You just kind of get lighter mentally speaking. But when you move your hand like this, you're also moving your astral hand. But we think we're moving our physical hands. We're not. We're using our energy to animate our physical hand. And so when you slide out a body, you take the energy out of the hand. It becomes super light. And you're like, oh, I've always done this. This is easy. This isn't something that's unfamiliar to me. But now the body, like lead, is just heavy. It's just staying on your bed, right? So it's like understanding that you already move these bodies to animate your flesh. But now you're doing it independently.
So the physicality of, okay, so we think that I'm physical, but you're saying that when we leave the body, that energy body, I'm not sure what the term is, that soul body is also physical as well as this one, or is it like just ghost light?
It's a different form of matter. Look at like exotic matter. It's energy, but it's not dense like our body. It's not made out of the earth. You know, this is why this body is so dense. people see it, they think dense. Oh, that's bad. It's a bad thing. No, it's made out of different carbon and all these different types of material constituents to make up you, that make up the protein structures of your skin, your hair, your eyes, everything. It's of the earth. It's earth. And so you have to slide out of it. But then you just shift into another energy body. There are subtler bodies that you have of different densities that your awareness to shift into. But most people, they have issues sliding out of their body and just moving around because they really can't detach their mind from thinking that they are their physical body. They think that they are dense. They think that they are these things, but they're not.
Right. We think that this is what we are, and that's all that we are, and this is as far as we go. But you're saying there's more to us. We're.
And you know what's interesting is that's just the story that we've been told, because I think subconsciously we kind of know that we're not our bodies, because we say things like, this is my hand. Mine is, and it's something that I take ownership of. So then it's not you if you're saying it's my hand. Otherwise you say, this is me, which kind of sounds silly if you say that, right? This is me.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
You say my foot, you say my liver, my kidneys, let's skip the heart, because sometimes people identify with the heart. And it's the same thing with the face. This is huge. It's the same thing with the face. People identify with the face, but the eye is just an organ like your brain. You say it's my brain, you don't say my brain is me. And so the eyes are extension of your brain. Stands to reason, you say my eyes as well. The eyes aren't you. They're a body part. Yeah. Same thing with the lips, the nose. And if you look at yourself, you see your dad and your mom, you're just seeing body parts that have been passed on through generation. It's not you.
I never thought about that. You're right. Like, I mean, when I conversate with other people, I've told them that, our personality, who we are, is our consciousness. Whatever, like, this corporeal self isn't really us. This is a vehicle, a container, a vessel, whatever it is, in order to allow us to navigate through this density. But whatever our personality is, it continues moving on. Am I on the right track with that mindset? Or
your personality is a collection of thoughts, and you keep it on your person. You keep it on you, like in you, But what you are, it does move on. And people freak out because they think if I die, that I'm going to die and something else is going to move on, like we're separate. But it's not like that at all. It's just like taking off your shirt and walking into another room. You're still there. It's just now you have a better sense of self. You just accidentally thought that this was you. It's not. You were introduced. This is the thing. Like, I always go back to cookies. Because I'm from England, so we eat like, we eat the ones that have they're like rectangular, they have cream in the middle and have this diamond pattern on them.
I think I know what you're talking about. I'm not sure what they're called. I don't know if I call them biscuits or something, but they're not like, there's some kind of biscuit, like but
bourbon, they're not really. Bourbon biscuit is another version of them.
Yeah. Go with that, instead.
And there's different versions of that around the world as well. But I remember being introduced to that and liking it so much that I started identifying with bourbon biscuits. I thought they were me. And I thought it was strange because I was really young. I was like maybe 5 or 6. And after a few days, I was sharing them with my friends, and they would take them and they would eat them. And I feel like I was sharing a part of myself, sharing an experience. It's not in a grotesque way, but like horror movie. But like somehow I thought that was me because my mom introduced them to me. And then I took it personal. When someone took my biscuits, I feel like they were taking part of me, and I got kind of mad and upset. Why are you eating my biscuits? They're mine. They're me,
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I had to step back from that and realize that I existed before they were introduced to me. So why am I losing my wig? Like, why am I freaking out? You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's talk about that, because when you first started, Ryan, you were talking about when you were, I don't know, barely just born. You remember you knew the doctor. Let's talk about that. Like, how did that, I don't even know what a great question for that is, but how did that come about, and how do you still remember that thought?
Well, I have something to tell you later too. It blew my mind a few days ago. Yeah, I was watching a reel on TikTok, and for the first 2 minutes, a minute and a half, I didn't even realize they were speaking Chinese. I understood everything they were saying. Now, and I'm getting closer. I've always been trying to get back to how I was when I was first born. Abilities, everything. And back then I could do that too. I could understand what everyone was saying, no matter the language. I didn't have a concept of language in my head. It didn't exist. So whatever anyone said, I understood what they said. It was weird. But to me, it wasn't weird. It made sense. Because where I was from, as a mind, as an energy being, this is the norm for all of us. There is no language. It's all universal.
Is it that there is no language, or there is just one language that every eternal being just speaks? Like, is that what
So this is when you're getting into relativity. So over there, we don't think that there's a language. So
say that again?
We don't think that there's a language. At least to a certain, I want to say group, but even that cuts it up. Because when you start using words and terms that we use here, it starts to kind of pollute the reality of what it's actually like over there in these other planes. When you take psychedelics, you get there. You go to causal planes and these other realms where you remember all of this. It's like a part of your mind wakes up and all this disappears. They call it an ego death. And you're like, oh, this is real. This is how things are.
This is home. This is where I'm actually from. Let me ask you this. Why do you think we're here? Like, why, if we're these internal beings and home is somewhere else and there's whatever it is that's out there, why do we take a break from all that to just come here, in your opinion?
This is where it gets kind of complex. The answer is different based on the level of consciousness.
Go for it.
And that means based on, it's not like an insult or anything. It literally just means where you're vibrating at, how you're perceiving reality. That determines what meaning you give yourself, like what meaning you think existence has for you, but the meaning of life, right? So let's go really low. You think the meaning of your life is being a dentist. Because everyone told you to be a dentist. Clearly, that's not true, right? If we remove that program, that idea, almost like hypnotism, they've induced you into this state of believing that peer pressure and repetition and feelings of excitement of being someone. It's really bizarre. Before that happened to you, your meaning of life changes based on the present moment. So if the meaning of your life in this moment is to sit here and have a podcast, then that's your meaning of life. But realistically, I don't think so, because given your age, and it's like this has become an occupation, I think this is a little different. If we change it to someone much, much younger, maybe they're like 9 years old, and they just want to ride their bike one morning, that's their meaning of life in that moment. It's what they're interacting with. It's what they're engaging with. And that can change. They could have a crush on a girl. Now that's their meaning of life. They're becoming engrossed in whatever meaning they give themselves from moment to moment, and that's them living their life. And that's normal. When that's happening, they're not thinking this is the meaning of life per se, be that the girl or riding the bike, only till someone says, hey, do you want to do this for the rest of your life? Do you want to make a career out of this? And they're like kind of confused. What's getting confused is that part of them that's very divine and knows that that's nonsense. Why would you make that a career, like being on a bike? It's very limiting. People do it though. They've been convinced. But it's really bizarre. It's like a koan, and koans are stories that systematically deconstruct your sense of self and sense of reasoning. And they bring you to this moment of dumbfoundedness. You're like, it doesn't make sense. So you'll experience these. And this is because when you are dumbfounded, you start to realize the true nature of life and how things actually are. So when a 9-year-old is told, hey, do you want to ride your bike for the rest of your life and make it a career? What? That's not true. That's not what we're supposed to do. And it's funny because they're not thinking what my life purpose is neither. They're just thinking, I see this, I want to engage with it, play with it, interact with it. Just like, and you get younger and younger and you see more and more of that. And then when you have kids, you see that happen too. You start to realize that the meaning of life at this level is just to experience life. And when you're doing that, you're not thinking about the meaning. You're not trying to strive for a goal of experiencing the meaning of life because you're already doing it. It's like the moment you try to do that, you disconnect from the meaning of life and now you're on a different path.
Yeah.
And so you start losing touch with things and a deeper sense of self. That's that level. Then there's another level, which is life itself. Life exists just because life. I'm talking about the energy that's animating everything. It's doing it just because. And that is the meaning of life. It's the fact that the essence of life is to live, and it will do it however which way it can. And it's this force of just growth. Just, I want to be, right? And so there, you're not getting very precise to the point where it's like, I want to be, or at least in the case of, so I guess that is being very precise. I want to be, it's like the only intention, but it's not split up into these roles of professional BMX rider or, race car driver or anything like that.
Whatever. So you're saying it just wants to exist. Just
it doesn't want to. That's its default state. It has no choice, and it doesn't think that per se. It just is in its beingness life. And you can touch this part of you and be that, and you'll feel very alive. I have an idea that could actually change the body quite a bit and increase your lifespan. And you can come about this realization through meditation and through certain practices. This particular one came to me during a 8-day dry fast. So no food, no water. And I was outside and it was springtime and I could hear the trees and the plants. Sounds bizarre. They were telling me things, not with words, but the same way that beings in the astral plane speak. It's a vibration.
Yeah. It's a feeling.
And they'll tell you about all of this stuff, what's going on here. And then, so there are different levels to it. It's all relative. It's based on the vibration of your consciousness, the lens in which you see the world and yourself. And that's based on indoctrination and just thoughts, really, being talked to a lot. It's really nice. Yep.
Right, Sai. I didn't mean to interrupt you because I know you were in a train of thought, but just talking about like plant life and things like that, I go for walks. I love that. And I always, I do have moments where I feel like, I have these streets full of oak trees, and sometimes I walk by these oak trees and I feel like, and it sounds weird, but a tree or two would just like say something to me. Now, I don't mean like hear it verbally, just like a feeling, kind of like what you were saying. So I resonated when you said that. Kind of like, I'll walk by a tree and the tree will be like, hey, look at me, just look at me and everything. How would one that's in this mindset that I just talked about, how would one really interact with that tree? Like, do I stop? Do I put my hand on it? Do I say something to it? Like, how can I get into my mindset where I can really hear it if I want to?
So really just being in close proximity is enough. They can feel you from quite a distance, actually. You can look in its direction and pick up on you just like people. To be able to hear it more, you need to stop thinking. And this helps if you're in the tree, if you're sitting in the tree or next to the tree, or you're in a pasture, you're in a very open space in a forest among a lot of trees, because you're away from people. People think too, and you can tap into them, and it'll drive you a little crazy. And so if you want to start developing this ability of telepathy, which I find is actually easier if you're going to work with trees first, then you would go off to a forest and you would just stop thinking and listen, but you're listening with your mind. And so you look at something at first, maybe the tree that you want to build a relationship with, and you just listen without thinking. The more you try to interpret or extrapolate what it feels and try to put it into words, the worse of a job you're going to do, because the brain's going to cut it up and mess it all up.
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. I'm actually going to take you up on that note and stuff. I've tried, my own versions of it and stuff, but I'm going to give that a shot. Don't think, sometimes I'll get like 5 different things that I think, the tree or the grass or the rock is saying. And that's just me just trying to put my own thoughts into it. So it's fascinating. Let's, Ryan, I'm interested. So you've achieved out-of-body experiences. I'm interested to know, what are some of a experience that you've had outside the body? Like, I mean, you don't just come out with no intention, no purpose. Like I'm assuming you go out and explore, right? Like, yeah, where have you been? What have you seen? Is there anything that you can describe for us?
It depends on, it depends. I remember at one point I got bored when, it was in my early 20s. I was bored of astral projection. So I would just leave my body without a purpose and wonder. And that could lead to some very profound experiences.
Let me ask that. You left the body. Okay. You don't have any particular place that you want to go. What does what does your surroundings look like? Do they look the same? Do they change? Is it like the Matrix? Like, can you give me a little bit of description on that?
Depends where I want to go. I mean, at first I'll leave the body with a place in mind.
Okay.
Whether it's the etheric plane, the astral plane, causal, mental, or emotional. It just depends. When I was just kind of bored, sure, at times I wouldn't really care as to where I go. I'll just slide out. And depending on the time of day at that point, I'll determine where I go. So if it's nighttime, I'll be in the etheric plane, super dark and dingy, filled with thoughts. I say that is the collective's lucid dream. It's where everyone's thoughts show up in that place. As opposed to you being in your own lucid dream, where you're in control of your own mind. Daytime, astral plane. So it's very symbolic. It will never look exactly like our plane because it's not supposed to. It has certain elements of our plane and certain elements of other planes, like parallel dimensions, past, present, and future, all mix up here. It's very symbolic, as within, so without. Your brain on the inside is very symbolic, especially if you take certain psychedelics or you do certain meditations with candles, candle gazing. You can trigger a kind of DMT-like experience where your subconscious mind is made manifest by way of sacred geometry and entities. That's not to say they're all fake. There are real ones too, But the outside world, in the astral plane, there are entities that are geometrical in nature and are archetypes. This is all part of the same thing. They're all manifestations of everyone else's mind. And then you have entities that show up that are real. And so it's like the astral plane is a very mixed bag, kind of like our subconscious mind. When we take certain psychedelics, it's not always extremely abstract. There is quite a firm foundation of practicality over there, very solid over there, in that you can wander streets, go into cars, go into the past. It serves as a kind of architectural window, if you will. It's kind of like the plans before the plans have been built. I used to say it's all of the paint that the artist has before they put it on the canvas. This is the canvas. This is the end result of the collective's thoughts, of the energy, all trickling down the planes, but being made real here. Those who know how to manifest, they can throw out thoughts into these realms, and then it will come to them. They don't have to astral project, but if you know how to astral project, you can leave and do it over there and watch it come into our reality. You can play with the astral realm like that, yeah. So when you get good at leaving the body, you can actually meditate in the astral plane and connect to all these realms and intimately understand how it's done. And just play with it and just do it on purpose. At times I would get bored and just wonder and play with the form of the astral planes over there and have things.
Let me wrap my brain around that statement here. So let's say I can astral project. I go into the astral planes, and let's just something super simple. Like I want to manifest like this hat that I'm wearing. I manifest it there. Then I come back. And then there's some kind of process that I would then already understand and know how to manifest that thought into this density. Is that
what you're... after learning it over there, you can do it here?
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like once I learn how to do it, like I know because I'm all knowing now, whatever the case is. Now that I know how to do it, I come back here, remember how I did it there, and then do it here.
Yeah. And a lot of abilities are done like that. Like telepathy. I learned telepathy at one point and really had it turned up to the max because a being in the astral plane showed me how to do it, and I just copied here. A lot of beings tell me how to do things, and they say, just do it here, just do it long enough here and it'll work. Or they'll tell me that my physical body's too dense, and so you just got to keep practicing, and then the energies will sort themselves out. And so
that's wild. That's wild. I've always, for years, for decades, I've always had dreams where I'm telekinetic, and I move things like easy, just like moving a finger, like with ease. And whenever I wake up, I try to remember that feeling, what I felt as I was doing those things, to see if I can just replicate that feeling to execute. And it never really works and stuff, but just blows my mind that can be done.
Yeah, you got to work on your energy, but it'll work. Do things like Qigong, Neigong, chakras, learn how to actually do it. So don't create the energy with your mind, per se. That'll help stabilize things, but you want to learn how to trigger these natural reservoirs of energy in the body, learn how to seal up all the cracks so it stays, in the body, with chakras at least. You also need to learn how to pull energy from certain elements and hold that in the body without it going anywhere. The mind can somewhat generate energy if you think hard enough, because thinking is a form of energy. If you learn to become a vessel of pure, well, I would say, pure helps in a sense of quality, so your mind's not tainting your energy, you will start developing abilities. And things that you learn over there will suddenly start working here. Whereas if you don't have all that foundation and you just try it, it won't move. Like, why isn't it working? And then you go ask the same thing, they'll say, you need to work on this.
Yeah, there's no foundation. There's no, like, you can't just do without a process. Ryan, have you, people like the Bible and other stories say that, like, we're in some kind of like construct of, or whatever the case is. What does your experience and understanding tell you? Like, have you seen, like, if there is a construct, if this is a construct, have you been able to astral project yourself outside of it? Let me just ask that question.
Yeah, but from my understanding of it, I've had, this kind of gets weird. My understanding of messes up again. My understanding of the nature of reality, let's say, wasn't based off of video games or the Matrix. There seems to be two schools of thought, where those who are just coming across this idea for the first time are using video game references like NPC and the Matrix as an idea to wrap their head around everything just being your mind.
Right.
And I believe when you do it like that, it kind of lowers your frequency. It also distorts how it actually is. It kind of makes you slip into a state of either psychosis or mania with a level of detachment. And that can ruin families, relationships. I've seen it happen when people just naturally push themselves there through meditation, and people pushing themselves there to that state using psychedelics like ayahuasca. Yeah, or DMT, smoking DMT. And then they're outside of everything. They come back, nothing is real. I'm gonna quit my job. Screw my partner, like, I don't need this person anymore. I don't need my kids. They just move to Hawaii or Bali and to hell with everything. It's really bad, super toxic. And that's because I don't think it's, first off, a person's vibration is too low to start entering into those realms. So it's kind of damaging. I say their filter, the way they naturally perceive the world, is trying to perceive information from these higher realms, and it's doing it using bits and pieces that are terrible components to the filter. Be that references like video games and movies, you know? Or if you're in a state of depression and you have this kind of dark night of the soul where you become aware of everything being not real in the sense that people are used to, you know, thinking in terms of real or fake. And because you're at a low vibration, everything that you now come into contact with is just not worth your time. It's all not real. Who cares? Life's terrible. Life sucks. Who cares? You're like that already. And so now that you learn this stuff, this information, either through hearing it through a podcast, and that wakes up the mind, like the mind's itching now, like exploring from the inside. This sounds familiar. The filter, the screen, the information that you're now trying to understand this stuff through, it's polluting the process. It's best not to go into these areas of the simulation through the media, through online, and instead do it naturally through dreams, lucid dreaming, astral projection, subtle psychedelics, but also have a guide, a mentor that can literally give you the right programming, literally like a spell. They can tell you how to look at it so that you don't go into dark places. For example, they say, you're all me, so you don't exist. Bad. Rather than going with that line of thought, think to yourself, okay, I exist, so I know I'm definitely real, and you're just an extension of me, so that stands to reason that you're also real. So you're reframing what reality means to you. And if you can do this really well, gradually, at the same time that you're being exposed to these insights, this knowledge, this real knowledge, then you will steadily grow through it, and you'll feel very comfortable. You'll be like these Zen masters, these gurus that can just sit there and be like, cool, like this is great. I'm okay with this. This is fine, you know? And they're enjoying the experience. A lot of higher vibrational beings are like that. They understand it. They're okay with it. they move along with it. Lower vibrational beings hate the fact that everything is all one thing, because that means that it is alone. It's just one being in its own mind alone. Nothing else exists outside of it. It freaks out with that concept. That's its train of thought. But again, it's based on your perspective, how you look at it, you know?
Some people that are currently practicing outer body experiences are not being successful because they're afraid of what they may interact with when they leave their body. Is this a common thought for beginners, and how would one get over that?
It's fresh in my mind because I put it in a blog post a couple of days ago. Everything. Well, I would say everything. Beginners will most likely end up in the etheric plane first.
Well, which is bad. Is that a bad place? Or is that a good place?
It's the realm that's closest to our realm. Okay. So a lot of thought pollution can show up there. And I only say beginners will go there first because most beginners will try the sleep methods where you mix the idea of sleep with being awake. And there's a good way to fix that, because that can cause problems if you're looking at it like that. That's not to say that it's not going to work. It's just you're using two states of mind, like being awake and being asleep, to try and trigger an experience. And what ends up happening as a result is you'll either fall asleep or stay awake. Because when it comes to suggestibility, the moment you lay down, you're using two terms. Your brain is hardwired for only those two outcomes.
Separate, right?
Well, yeah, your brain, your entire life, when people say the word sleep, you think unconsciousness, dreaming.
Right.
And so when you go to lay down and you're like, I'm going to astral project, but you're using terms for other experiences, your brain just gives you what it is you're saying. And then in the beginning, we get frustrated. Like, why isn't this working? So you've got to use different terms so that your brain will give you a different outcome. Say if you lay down with the idea of being aware, I think aware is the term I used. Aware. And rather than saying that I'm going to fall asleep, just say I'm going to ignore my body completely and leave it. I don't need to pay attention to it. It is where it is. Set it up. It can stay there. This involves no longer thinking about breathing or anything like that, or relaxation. If your mind is off of it, you'll leave it. And so if you go with that in mind, you'll have much more success because your brain interprets those two states of being differently. It knows you can be aware in altered states because of lucid dreaming and meditation, deep meditation. It knows how to take your attention off of your body completely, because for the majority of your life, you've probably not paid attention to the back of your ear or other parts of your body, right? So imagine that with your entire body. And so when you can tell the brain what you want this specifically, you can actually encourage astral projections very easily.
So like without
missed your question.
No, you got it. Again, I'm processing what you're explaining here. So you're saying you can go to bed with the intention of ignoring, like, hey, I'm putting my body down, I'm parking it, but my intention is I'm leaving my body. Like I'm putting it here. I'll come back for it, but my intention is I'm out. And then you just go. So there's no, I've seen people talk about, drugs, right? Different psychedelics. I see people talk about putting your body into sleep paralysis. Talk to me about that. Sleep paralysis. Is that a stage in the process to get to leaving your body that you think has to happen?
No, it's based on your energy. If your energy is tuned up already, you don't need sleep paralysis. You just get past it. A lot of people wait for sleep paralysis and they don't need it. They really don't need it. Sleep paralysis is as of a direct result of your intention, or rather, even better, your expectation. Because your brain responds really well to expectation. If you expect something to happen, your brain will change how it's behaving and it will alter the chemical composition of your blood. So you'll start secreting melatonin and other forms of hormonal constituents that will really put you into an altered state. Your brain waves will shift to a nice theta from probably beta or alpha, depending on the time of day, and you'll be wide open to astral projection experiences, or even altered states of experience, altered states, consciousness. The vibrational stage is as of a direct result of your expectation. The moment you expect to leave the body's going to naturally do what it feels is necessary for you to leave the body. And so if that is vibrational state, then you'll enter into the vibrational state. If it isn't, it will skip past that state, and it's on you not to question what's happening. If you start questioning, controlling the process, thinking, I know how it's done because I've watched all these videos and this stuff online, you're now taking control over a process that you honestly don't know how to do. But your subconscious mind knows how to do it. Your brain knows how to do it, especially if you've had other experiences in the past. All you've got to do is lay down and expect more of the same. There are so many ways to trigger astral projections and to really recognize the mechanism at play here. Essentially, as a beginner, your job is to communicate across to the brain this experience. And you do that by doing so many different techniques and practices that paint a nice picture, astral projection, an out-of-body experience, so that your brain can be present to that, understand what you're shooting for, and then do the job for you, no matter what the techniques are. And so you intend to show it these things by practicing certain techniques. Do it all the while being aware of the fact that your subconscious mind is also listening to everything that you're doing. It's watching everything that you're doing, and it's taking notes. This is why the right information is so important. If you learn the wrong information, you give your brain the wrong information, you get clunky results. And so it's about understanding the brain. You kind of want to use it, or your subconscious mind, really. Your subconscious mind controls the brain. It's about building this trust, this buddy system with it, listening to it, understanding the process. And then what ends up happening is you can just lie down, and it's really just a movement of your thoughts. Astral projection. You just want to do it. It's like a subtle movement in the brain, in the mind, and you just slip out and you're out. Everything's like that over there. You want to be out longer? I want to be out longer. You choose to be out longer. You're out longer. You go somewhere. You just want to go there. You go there. Well, I remember a question you asked earlier about thinking. Like, it feels like you're thinking in the astral plane. You're not thinking in the astral plane. That's brain activity. You think with your brain. Yeah, you were mentioning something about how when you're in the astral plane, it sounds like you have thoughts.
Right. Are there no thoughts?
There are no thoughts. There's a knowing. Your mind, well, like for example, your phone. You know what color your phone is, right? You don't have to tell yourself what color it is. You just know. Or maybe driving or playing the guitar. You just know how to do these things. It's a knowing.
Right.
In the same way that you know that you have a mom and a dad. You don't have to sit there and think, what's their name? What do they look like? Or anything like that. So when you're in the astral plane, you shift to just strictly knowing. It's a form of thinking, but it's a form of thinking that you can use without a brain, without your body. And it's something that keeps going on long after the body's deceased.
I love that explanation, because even now in our physical body, there's a lot of things that we just feel like we know, and we don't know why. It's that innate instinct, and and that's us, but we're not trained. Mainstream doesn't train us to listen to that or even know how to even interpret that. So it's, if you pay too much attention to it, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're kooky. You're like, don't do.
Crazy can happen when you try to mix knowing with logic, because then you get the wrong idea. You misunderstand your knowings. Like if you feel like you're connected to a certain person in the past that's long dead, maybe it's like a pharaoh, but the internet's telling you that you're reincarnated. That's why you can feel them. Now you're going crazy, because you're taking logic to explain the invisible, and now your ego gets involved. Change your name, everything shifts, and people can smell that on you. They can see it. They know when you've lost the plot. If you want to know why you feel that way, you have to not think, leave the body and find out, or take a psychedelic and find out. Take ayahuasca. That will allow you to find out. You need to keep following that knowing until you realize why you know that person feels so familiar. Maybe they were a friend in the past life. Maybe you were an Egyptian in a past life, Or maybe your mom was, or something like that. There's something more that needs to be uncovered. You shouldn't just run straight to logic, because then it mixes the two. It inflates one or the other. So, yeah. And it's funny, when you astral project, that form of knowing, you can't think with words in your astral head. You can't do it. It is a knowing. It's a pure knowing, and it's so precise that you know what it is that you are meaning to put across to yourself. Like, I want to go to maybe, what did I try to go recently? Last week I was trying to go to Shambhala.
Shambhala, what is that?
Shambhala. It is a temple, kind of like miniature city, minus cars. It is very spiritually advanced, and it's on the cusp of the astral plane, on the cusp of our physical world. And the beings that live there have figured out immortality. The people in the nearby villages near that in our physical world have figured out immortality. And they have no karma. It's perfect in there. Shambhala. And the beings there, ascended masters, they can easily come and go as they please. I tried going there, went through a series of tests, and the last one, I failed simply because there were 3 beings there. They were porcelain looking with white robes, and they had wounds on their head painted gold. They didn't like us because they said that we were damaging the world, so they didn't want me there. The other beings loved it.
What, humans? What
yeah.
do you mean about
people in general. On the other side of the fence, our behaviors, what we do, what we value. We don't value the earth. We value materialism. We value burning things. We'd rather just throw things out the window or set on fire rather than thinking about its impact on the environment. They don't like that. And they saw me as a reflection of everyone else. They didn't look through me to read my mind or anything, which normally beings do. The other 2 loved the fact that I was there. The other 2 beings, there were beings that were like orbs of different colors of light. They spun together in a spiral and made like a disc. And they were super excited that I got there. This other being gave me questions telepathically. When I was in my body, I saw its mind on the screen of my pineal gland. The screen is basically when you close your eyes, you see all the dots. That's the screen of your pineal gland. That is the screen in which you'll start to receive images or impressions from other dimensions. And this is you knowing that you're seeing with your third eye and not your imagination. Being showed up there first. So I just saw this part of his face and his eyes. And he telepathically had a conversation with me, asking me serious questions before he let me go to the next stage. I remember why I even went into this topic. But
no, that's fine.
Shambhala,
Shambhala, yeah.
Shambhala.
Well, you said you've been trying to go there?
I tried one time last week.
One time. Okay.
Oh, I don't know why I mentioned that. It's like on the astral plane, right next to ours. I think we were talking about something to do with planes, and that's why I can't
no, that's fine. And it sounds like these beings that wouldn't let you go through were being very judgmental. So is there judgment on the other side?
Yeah, so this is another thing that comes up. People wonder if just because, there are other beings out there, does it mean that does it mean that they're going to be benevolent? And no, you have beings in different planes that all look different. Giants to small beings to ones that look like aliens. And they all have their opinions. As you go up into the higher planes, they start to become more, I guess, what you would hear Jesus would be like, or is like nowadays through media.
Like more strict? Like
the higher you go, the less judgmental they are and the more benevolent they are. Shambhala is right on the cusp of our plane. So the other sets of beings I met first were fine, loving, great. One was really strict, the one that showed up on the screen. But those 3, they just seem to be stuck on the state of people here. And that's why they didn't let me go. Next time I try, I'm going to go through a different door. And get in there.
Get in there. Yeah, get in there.
Do you know about Iron Fist?
I do not know about Iron. Well, Iron Fist, yes. The guy with the golden dragon fist, right? That can
He's in Shambhala in the comics.
I didn't think of. Yeah, you're right. I did not think about that.
And it only shows up like once a year.
Yeah. You think the depiction of the comic book story of Shambhala and things in it, do you think it's similar in any way? I think
it's very similar.
I wonder where they got that.
Most of the times they're inspired by lore,
Yeah. See, a lot of these, this is why a lot of these fictional stories, especially comic books, if they weren't in comic books before, they were being told by other people just by word of mouth and everything. And this is just lore, because it's in comic books now and people, mainstream says that comic books are fake. Then we just get trained to say, oh, it's fake.
People are bulletproof. You won't see it on Facebook.
Shambhala?
No, in real life. Not everyone, of course. But you won't see it on Facebook or on Google. It's highly censored. If you go on VK, it's a Russian version of Facebook. It's way less censored. You can go down a rabbit hole where you see monks getting shot and they just take the bullets off them. Sure.
Really?
They do something with their energy. They push it to the surface of their skin, get into a meditative state. And then the straight up firearm, armor-piercing rounds. Nothing. They set themselves on fire. They don't set on fire. Their clothes didn't even set on fire. They're just sleeping.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing.
That's crazy. That's
Superhero
crazy.
stuff.
I totally believe that because there used to be, I think in the maybe late 90s, early 2000s, there used to be a TV series of, I think it was called like Stan Lee's Superhumans or something like that.
Went around the world looking for people with powers.
Yes. Yeah. Where they had the guy that had that condition that his skin could stretch out. So he was the host and he would go around looking for superhumans. That show was so inspirational to me because I'm just like, there are very fascinating, interesting people out there. And those are the ones that they caught on TV. Imagine the ones that just don't want to be, in the limelight. What are they doing? What can they do?
Like I heard a story the other day of China back in the day, like way back in the day, and how Neigong and forms of Qigong, energy manipulation, was on a whole nother level back then. It would blow our minds. Even the modern day practitioner who could push someone with their Qi would be completely perplexed at what they're doing. I'm talking jumping over maybe three-story walls like it's nothing. Like doing things with their weight super thin, becoming super heavy. I mean, that sounds easy to understand, to wrap your head around, but I can't even go there when it comes to examples of what they were doing. The way it was put across to me was incomprehensible. The skill that they had with their energy and just the kind of depth they had with the knowingness of what they are and the world around them. And all that information apparently is lost because it just doesn't get passed on anymore. Throughout generation, people just die. I'm sure it's somewhere, but I don't think it's going to be easily attainable. It'll probably be I don't know, somewhere.
Well, I'm sure there's masters out there that don't want to teach anybody for whatever reason. I interviewed a while back a good friend of mine named Chris Fazio. He's on one of the episodes here in season 1, and he has trained with the Neigong techniques for like years, for over a decade plus. He trained with some masters and things like that. And he was, offline, he would tell me about his master who would teleport in front of his face. And then he would ask as a young student, he was like, how'd you do that? Like he's in front of him. All of a sudden the guy's way behind him, like 12 feet. And he's like, how did you do that? And the master's like, what do you mean? I just moved. In his mindset, he just moved. But to a new person, they teleported like 12 feet away. This master he would do things with apparently just his thought in physical density in this realm, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, dang, like why aren't those people like not displayed like a zoo, but why aren't they displayed in a way where everyone can see, like, look, like these things do exist. They can be done. I mean, they hide away, and I get it, because you take one person and then mainstream goes in and they become a circus. I mean, they pretty much lose their life. They lose their life, meaning their privacy. Scientists want to test them and things like that. So I get it. Dang, it's wild.
So they're there. They're around. But like you said, they're not coming out. And I don't just kind of mean that, because you hear people say all the time. I know that. There's 6 volumes to a book. The last one's hard to find. The life and the teachings of the masters in the Far East, and they explain literally people who do just that. And their explanation is they can teleport, but when it comes to people not being able to see them, their explanation is that they go up in frequency to the point where they're actually still there, but you can no longer see them. They just walk around you. Yeah. And so they say they're crossing into the invisible to be able to get from point A to point B, and you can't see into the invisible. If you raise your frequency, then you'll see them moving.
Right.
So
them and everything else that's in that frequency,
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's their explanation. You can also find a video of them, because this happened quite some time ago. So they had old-timey cameras recording things, and you see 2 masters and a person meditating in lotus pose on top of a mountain. You can see the 2 masters go on the opposite side of the mountain.
Like Raiden off of Mortal Kombat.
I mean, I wish there was that much lightning, but technically, with like the ropes and everything.
Yeah. That is wild.
And you know what? What's funny? I mean, to like stop you, but if you look at the Nuke's Top 5, the scary videos where you see shadow beings disappearing, it's in a very similar way. they drop from the top down and then come back up. Or maybe, because you can drop from the top down, at least that's how these masters appear to do it in the video. I've seen other versions where people tend to just kind of phase out of existence and then show up again as an energy and then themselves again. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. There is teleportation, like dematerialization of the physical body. But then there's also that being in such a high space that you're no longer perceivable to people.
Yeah. No, the whole, I mean, I'm into all that world, frequency, vibration, all that good stuff. It's like tuning a radio. 1 minute I'm 94.1 and then I'm 94.2. I'm on a different channel now. Still same radio station, just I'm on a different frequency and stuff. And then the in between though, that's what, like the in between going from one frequency to the other, that static. I wonder what that would be in comparison to, like, I always think about like when, aliens or Bigfoot or whatever is, shifting in from one frequency into the other. These people always try to take these photos of a UFO or Bigfoot and they see this like hazy shift. I wonder if that's what's happening there. They're catching them in the middle of the thing disappearing or coming into this density,
Very well could be. There was a time when I was walking my dog, and it happened for like 4 months straight. I would go to the field. How the heck was that? It's like flash of purple light. And I'm like, that was weird. Walking my dog, happened again. And I looked up and I saw it. In the clouds, burst of purple light. There was depth to it. I made sure it wasn't a hallucination. I tested it. There was depth to it. I could see how it was behind the cloud shooting a purple fireball and it would land and hit something across in another cloud. Clouds are not purple. It's the light behind them. There's an energy behind them. Some type of ship, maybe an energy-based ship. But they were shooting at each other. No sound. I could see it clearly with my eyes. I then moved my head like this because if it's a hallucination, the visual effect will track with my vision. No, now it's over. It's still there. I'm just looking over here now. I take out my, I even look at the floor to see if I could see it, and I could see the reflection of the purple hitting the floor because it's so bright in the clouds. I can really make out the depth. And being someone who plays with Photoshop and videos, like I know where this thing is. I can kind of tell where it is. And so I take out my phone and I record it. And I look at it in my periphery. I can see the purple going off. So they're shooting at each other. My phone is completely black. I look at the recording, completely black. Phone can't pick it up. Yeah. And so the meditation I was doing at the time that I believe triggered this, it wasn't just astral projections, because I was astral projecting at the time as well. I was moon gazing. I'd moon gaze as much as I possibly could. And I just kind of knew that it interacted with the third eye in such a way that you could see spirits. And then I'd look around and I could see spirits everywhere. I could see disembodied arms and legs in clouds of masses of clouds. Yep.
Let me interject there. So for those like myself that don't know what moon gazing is, please elaborate. What is that?
Yeah, so there's sun gazing, where you stare at the sun as a form of ripening up the third eye, juicing it up, activating it, detoxifying it even. Then there's moon gazing, where you intentionally stare at the moon to feel its effects on the waters of the body, in your body, as well as to your mind. And if you just naturally gaze at the moon, so you rest your attention on the moon, you don't want to like super stare at it like a burning a hole through it. You'll fatigue your eyes and cause damage to your eyes. But you just rest your eyes on it and you just make your mind quiet, and you'll feel its pull on your emotions. You'll feel its energy in the body. It's almost like you're charging up. Then you keep your eyes rested on it, but then bring your head down and let your eyes just kind of come down. Kind of like stereoscopes. Have you seen stereoscopes? Yep. So it has two black dots and you look at them and you bring your eyes down once your eyes start to shift their focus. So you maintain that focus. Do the same thing with the moon in an open space and look around. You will see spirits. You'll see ghost animals. And it's not a hallucination. You can test it like I did with the purple. You can literally walk around it. You can see them walking as you see the arms and legs coming out of them. You're seeing into the spirit world. You're changing your frequency. You're going up, if anything. And you're able to perceive these energies, these natural energies. So that's what I think allowed me to see these ships. And I asked everyone for months, those 4 months, if they were saying the same thing. And my brother said, yeah, I saw them too. I was like, exactly. So it's actually happening. No one even looked at me when I told them about it. Like, I would have been, if my friend told me that they were seeing this and I'm coming over to your house, we're having a sleepover and I'm going to come out with you. I don't want to see this. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's wild. I'm loving all of this. I want to ask you one more question, and then we'll get into these final questions here. Well, first of all, right now, today, what is your intention, your goal, and how you plan on using your abilities? Is it for yourself? Are you doing things for others? Like, put it this way, like you have superpowers. How are you applying those into your day-to-day, into your life?
There is a part of me that I've been trying to get back since I lost it when I suppressed everything. And this goes back into me watching the Chinese reel and not realizing they were speaking Chinese for like almost 2 minutes straight. I felt like myself then. And I'm doing meditations right now that are getting me closer to that. I've been doing meditations from the moment I woke back up at age 16 to get myself more like this. Heck, not this interview, but the last one I did on my channel, a lad wanted to, he saw my video with this guy called Ernst. He's like, hey, I want to be on the channel too. So I was like, okay, it's not something I usually do, but I was like, I remember you from back in the day, let's do it. And I was doing a lot of these practices. This is actually during the time where I was watching that reel and that happened. I started the call and you can actually watch it when I'm there. It's not me the entire time. I'm so engrossed in these practices that I've completely dismantled my sense of self, which is very thin anyway. But I was doing certain practices to make it completely gone, and I was really experimenting with just being nothing in an altered state. And so I literally come off of that and I sit down and I have an interview with this guy and my face is just blank. And some people that have watched it have misinterpreted my face to thinking that I'm not interested or anything. But I tell them, no, I'm not emoting a character. I'm just mind listening and really tuning into what he's saying. And then because of my mustache, it goes like this, it looks like I'm frowning. But you see it in the video, I catch myself doing it and I try to be normal. I try to be more like I'm into what he's saying. So I really try to focus on what he's saying and find that spark of, I like that too, which is there. It's just my mind was someplace else because I was meditating beforehand. So at the moment, I'm really leaning into practices that get me back to normal. And last night, I'm telling you, it was just like when I was 2, 3 years old. The entire night, I woke up in the astral plane, felt real. I didn't even question where I was. Like, am I in the astral plane? Am I not in the astral plane? Everything was so right. It was unplanned. I just wanted to go to sleep because this stuff opened me up so much. It made me, I'm going to say, pretty freaking close to how I was when I was young, if not there. My end goal would probably be to the point where I can understand all languages again by realizing there's no language and speak to multiple people in a room speaking to me. That would be really nice again. And also having that line of communication with entities just as easy as I did when I was a kid. I mean, at the moment it's a lot, but I want to be able to, again, just be in a room and see something right here that you can't see and be that my normal, you know?
Yeah.
And then
you're not afraid of that?
No, it's a little inconvenient like last night because you're trying to sleep and the room is filled with things. And actually, to remember your question, because you asked a question earlier on if people should be afraid of these things, right?
Yeah.
So their mind, it projects thoughts into these planes, and that's often what they're afraid of. It's their fears being made manifest in the etheric plane.
So
in other
you're
planes, it's less
that. Yeah, so you're saying you're facing yourself.
Yeah, and it's funny because when you catch this, you realize every thought you're having, they act on. And I remember I was watching The Ring, and I went to bed to astral project, and I saw hair moving in my ceiling into the corner of the room. I saw girls laughing, running across like this into the wall. Like, my room ain't that long to run that far. What's going on here? Like, I watched this clump of hair move and then come out, and then a Japanese girl show up with black hair, and I can't see she's wearing white or anything like that. It's just I can tell she's Japanese. The size, everything, the energy, the laughing, and then she takes a step. And I go, I'm stuck. So I hadn't exercised my body properly at this point. I'm kind of still figuring it out. And I'm like, oh, please don't take another step. Another step. Please don't laugh. Starts laughing. Please don't get faster. Then starts moving faster. And I'm like, oh, it freaking suck if she got up on my bed. Bed starts going in. She gets up on my bed. And I'm like, oh, what if it's hooves? Now it's hooves on my bed getting closer. And I go, please don't put your hands on my mouth to stop me from screaming. Hands in my mouth. And then at that point, something broke in me, or rather just released. And I was like, oh, this is all me. Okay. Yeah. Before you just mess up your microphone there. But I was like, wow.
And once you realized it was all you, it went away?
She looked at me. I saw her face. She laughed. Like she smiled and laughed at the exact same time that I smiled and laughed. Went into me and disappeared at the same time.
Went into you?
She was a projection of my mind.
Damn, dude. That's,
I tested it out wild. Soon after. I left my body and split myself into individual parts and gave them different looks. And I was like, yeah, I can project my mind. And I could even project a different energy body. I can make one up and project it in front of me. It's so easy to have your fears reflected to you in the astral plane.
Damn. Okay. So it sounds like the lesson, one of the lessons learned here is, and again, I keep going back to the beginners because the advanced folks already probably know how to do this, but the beginners, if you're trying to achieve this and you do achieve this, you need to go with the intention that everything is going to be okay. Like you're going into a loving space, like you're,
neutral
don't
space.
Take the fear out. Huh?
A neutral space.
A neutral space. And would it be right for me to also say for you as the individual to take control, meaning like know that nothing can hurt you unless you allow it to hurt you? Is that
to a large extent? Yeah. You'll find if they hurt you, you're probably thinking about how they were going to hurt you before they did it. And this mostly happens in the etheric plane. It's the plane closest to us where a lot of beginners go to. And so know that at least, let's say 80% of the experiences there are just made up. They're just projections in your mind. There are beings that do exist there. Now you're looking at the collective's thought forms. You have what you're projecting in front of you, like me projecting this Asian girl in front of me. But then you have the Hat Man, you have the shadow beings with the hoods. They are collective manifestations of thoughts, of fears. Like the boogeyman is a collective manifestation.
So like the 8.2 or 5 billion people that exist on this planet, all the thoughts that they've ever thought of or are or thinking of right now, it's all manifesting in this ethereal plane.
They have a lot in common with each other, yes. And they're creating what's known as egregores, otherwise known as, that's a Greek term, it's not so common nowadays, but the common term is thought form or tulpas in voodoo. Shinto is Japanese, I think, way of looking at it, but you're looking at more so the energy that's been imbued into an object by believing that it's in there. And that can also be seen in the etheric plane. And so we have this effect as a collective to bring things to life in the etheric plane. And if they go unchecked for a while and they're just completely fed with fear, which is what makes them exist. Without fear, there's no reason for them to be around, so they fall apart, which is why they feed on your fear. They will try to make you scared to exist. It's a form of sustainability for them. That's how you know you're dealing with a thought form or tulpa. They can become sentient, so they can have their own motives, their own directive, if they're fed for a long enough period of time and they're strong enough. I just made a blog post on this. It's a very long one, but it goes into the different types of thought forms that show up there. And this is excusing the real beings, because there are real beings too, but like fairies and stuff like that. They're really pain sometimes if you get some of those coming in. I made a very big list of them, how to get rid of them if you're plugged into them by accident. They can affect you in the physical world too. And people accidentally make these not just when they astral project, but when they get together. They can create a collective energy that shows up in the etheric plane. Maybe if they come together for a specific goal or purpose, their energy is now there. And every time they get together, maybe it's a business venture, it feeds their energy, it puts their thoughts in that energy. Now, when they recruit a new person, they're suddenly copying their mannerisms, and even saying the same words as them. It's because they're tapping into their thought form, their egregor. Some people say that you only call it an egregor when it becomes so big that it's self-sufficient, and you should call smaller thought forms or smaller egregors thought forms, because they're easier to dismantle. So that's a good way to kind of distinguish the two.
Jeez, man. You, since you're aware of this, you move past all that, right? When you leave your body, you don't really deal with these thought forms, right?
It's pretty funny because I remember distinctly walking throughout my hometown and watching a shadow being with the hood grab someone by the hair, flying through the air, a woman, and she was screaming, freaking out. I'm like, just relax and it'll let go. And there's a few times where I've walked in on people in sleep paralysis and they're freaking out, and I'm just looking at them like they just go down.
You walked in. Okay, first of all, the person on the street that was getting their hair pulled, this was the astral projection version of the woman that's being dragged. Like, it's
the
not her
etheric
physically.
body. She had shifted into an etheric body and astral projected, possibly in sleep paralysis, and had somehow managed to get this thing to pull her by the hair and fly through the sky.
Was he like abducting her?
Causing chaos, just fear.
Causing chaos.
Yeah.
What do you think that would do to her when
mentally
she
scar
wakes
her
up?
Yeah, she won't ever want to do it again. Go straight into Christianity.
Oh my gosh. And then you said something about while you're in your astral body, you walked into other people that are in sleep paralysis. So they probably see you as some kind of ghost or something, right?
Well, it's funny you say that. They actually see me as however I want to be seen as. Like, my intention starting off. The one time, it was kind of embarrassing, but no, she was so perplexed, she didn't really care. I came out naked because I sleep naked. Don't know if that's true to TMI. I'm grown up. It's normal. I find it easier to go to sleep like that. And I astral projected and I was naked. To me, not a problem. Not a big deal. I'm in the astral plane. Cool. This woman doesn't know she's astral projecting. I think she tried to go to sleep. She ended up leaving her body. She thinks she's dreaming. She's materialized 2 thought forms already, be that her roommates, and they've come into the room as if everything's normal and left the room. I then walk in and I make myself invisible ahead of time so she can't see me. And I walk in front of the bed and I'm standing there and she can't see me. I'm just looking at her. And I'm thinking, oh no, she really doesn't have a clue. And then all of a sudden I catch my reflection in the mirror and I'm there and she can see me. And she looks at me and she's like, what's going on? And I just carefully explained to her that I'm a real person. I've astral projected. I've left my body and I am just, just here. Don't worry about it. You're astral projecting too, and this will all go away soon. You'll wake up and be fine in your bed. And so it just depends on how I look. They'll see me however I see myself. And
that's wild.
Yeah.
I'm processing everything that you've explained because it's, I dig it all. I'm with it. You still got to process it though. It's cool. And actually, I've never had, since I've been doing the podcasting, I've never had an actual OB expert. So this is why I'm processing. I'm trying to figure this stuff out too. Wow. Well, Ryan, would you like to get into these 5 questions here?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
If you'd like, I'd like to give you something too. If you want, at least I can send it to you if you'd like. It's up to you. If you're into raising frequency or opening yourself up.
Yeah, by all means. Yeah, let's offline. Let's, once we stop the recording, let's, because I got some questions for you as well afterwards. You know what I mean? So cool. All right. So here is the first question, Ryan. Beyond all the knowledge and experiences that you've gained, what still leaves you in awe and makes you question everything?
Physical manifestations of things that you hear about in stories. Like the aliens at the moment, the alien movement, let's say, or the energy being movement. I've encountered them, I've experienced them. They're really hard to miss when you astral project. You can be in front of beings where their knees are bent backwards, big black eyes, and it's normal. But you tend to just think of it as just being there. For the most part, at least. You may have actual experiences too, where they face through the wall and look at you in real life, and that gets weird. But to see a collective going through an alien kind of awakening, if you will, that's leading me to think, oh wow, like, yeah, in like 20 years from now, the world might be so dystopian like what we see in movies. We may very well see beings like beings from Shambhala come through and other entities showing up, you know? It might just be normal. And people will be phasing and teleporting like it's nothing with their physical body. That could very easily be a thing in 20 years. At the moment, you got people levitating. You know, and that's becoming somewhat, well, I wouldn't say mainstream, but I could very easily see how that would catch fire quick.
Absolutely.
So it's the manifestation of these things. You know, I'm sure we're like probably around the same age, growing up, seeing things on TV and being like, wow, like Heroes, for example, being like, wow, can you imagine?
I'm 42.
You're 42?
Yeah.
You're like immortal. You don't look 42.
I'm an immortal?
Yeah. You got one of those faces. Yeah,
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Maybe cool. I do have immortal blood in me. Who knows?
Maybe it's your energy as well if you act young.
Yeah.
If you expect to be young, it's what your body gives you.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about it right now. I'm young forever.
Yeah. Well, they say if you are young, then you don't want to poke the bear, because if you start changing it, you change your programming, then the body follows suit. It's not staying how you are. Not taking on board the programming that tells you that you're older.
Yeah. That's why I don't really like celebrate like birthdays, right? I don't really celebrate them like with cake, candles, the whole song and dance. I'm just like, you know, some people laugh about this. I tell them, you know, my true self is eon old. Like why am I celebrating my mortal body? I'm just here experiencing this. I don't need to celebrate it. Like, you know, the experience alone, the fact that I get a chance to experience this is the celebration. That's the way I look at it. So,
the way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's probably why.
All right. Yeah. So here's my next question. Okay, so throughout this journey, who has had the biggest impact on your life and why?
I can't say it's just one person. It's always real people. Ex-girlfriend, she passed away, but the experience with her made me see myself in a certain type of way. Not that I was bad or anything. Like, see how that be taken out of context. I was very shy, you know, very quiet. And she forced me into situations where I had to be a little louder. Just because she was a little crazy, you know? She find her in the middle of the night outside with her friends, just crazy drama and chaos, but it forced me to have to kind of step up. It also forced me to, you know, unconditional love, really understand what that is, really, because a lot of things happened in that relationship. People would usually walk out on real quick. But there was something there which taught me how to be, or at least, and this is without me knowing even the concept of unconditional love. It just kind of instilled it in me. This is showing me how I am on a deeper level, and it's kind of growing this part of me, you know? Whenever she did something wrong, or what I mean wrong, bad, I don't mean accidentally, you know? I mean like something like, yeah. Those moments that shape my character, they kind of let me self-reflect and just come to grips with who you actually are. It's like they say you don't really know who you are until you're about to die, right? Those moments can change you. Those people that have been a part of those moments have changed me. You know, the person I'm with at the moment has changed me. Like it's the same thing. My dad to an extent, but it's not a competition, you know? They make you self-reflect and give you the opportunity to decide who you are. Are you who you believe you are on the inside, or are you pretending to be someone else to save face or whatever the world has convinced you to do? Yeah. And again, it goes to me feeling like I'm being pushed into this very solid, concrete sense of self that needs to stay the same. And it's kind of been like everyone and everything around me is trying to tell me to be someone I'm not. Does it even make sense? Try to tell me to be someone I'm not. Everyone has their own opinion of me, their own perception on who I am. I'm never the same person in front of everyone because everyone brings out a different side of me. But that's changed for the last year. I've learned to just be mind no matter the situation, which is also something that's kind of been congruent within my life, even from college. Like, I could never fit in with people because I never tried to pretend to be someone I'm not. So it'd be very freaking awkward when someone's super happy and they're pretending to be happy and they come in and expect me to match and I'm just being me. And that made me like an outcast for a while. But like I'm saying, it's like we have these deep intuitive understandings of how we're supposed to be. And it's like we're being trained out of them. We're being domesticated and kind of shifted into a mold that we don't fit. And I think that's when a lot of people get mentally ill and physically diseased. At least from what I know from a personal perspective, I've been trying to stay that way and get back to it. And I think other people are like that too, especially if they are very tired of trying to fit a mold that doesn't seem to work. I feel like I've missed your question again, but
you got it. There really is no like right or wrong answer to this. These are just questions for you. And it's beautiful how people put them together, what comes to their mind, what comes from their heart. So I appreciate that. And I'll ask you one more here. If you could talk to little Ryan, what would you tell him?
See, this is a thing I've thought of a few times. And the problem with that is if I tell him the right thing to do, he may grow up to be an asshole. You know, it's the things that have happened to me that have made me the way I am. And although I would love for him to have an easier life and just to stick to himself, keep certain friends around and don't follow the friends that look like they have it all together or are popular. Just follow. Here's one thing I was thinking, but I cannot tell him, which would be go to the places where you're appreciated. The people that want to be in front of you, give them your energy and time and stop chasing the people that don't care about you, right? That would be one of the main things that I would probably, even then I could probably be talked into going back in time and being like, hey, pay more attention to this person here or these groups of people here. Because it seems like that's been up until I left college, my whole life pretty much, my first 18, 20 years. And it just causes issues.
Yeah, it does. And I got to ask you, the first part of that last response, that if you were to tell him something that, pretty much it could change who you are today, right? Because you've interfered with your past self.
Yeah.
Have you answered that question in a different interview?
No.
Do you recall? No?
No one's asked me that question.
Because
congratulations.
As soon as you, as soon as you answer that, a very familiar thought came to my mind of you answering that question, that same exact question, the same way that you did. And in my mind, I was like, wait a minute, did I hear him say that before?
Maybe you're more you than you may think, because you should have a natural connection to time and space. So
yeah, I don't know. It just, how you said it and the way you said it and you being there. And I just had like a moment where that whole situation was familiar. And then as you finished that sentence off, I came back to realizing, oh, that happened, but it was during this podcast. It sounds weird anyways.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. Okay. So Ryan, as we wrap it up, I appreciate everything that you've explained, everything that you elaborate on, your thoughts, just everything was just flowing organically as it should. And for those that are listening, whether you guys understood this at all, or some of you that love this stuff and did understand it and resonated, drop comments. Tell me your takeaways. What did you get from this conversation? What did you agree with? What did you have a question with? Whatever, just engage. I'm curious to know what you all think about this, and also about my guest, Ryan Proper. And Ryan, before I close out this episode, one more time, how can people find you? And if there's any last thing that you'd like to pass on to my audience?
You're watching this guy. Yeah. I have a website, ryancropper.com. And if you are interested in learning astral projection, I have things for everybody. I have a YouTube channel, Ryan Cropper. There's a playlist there. I've put all the astral projection videos when it comes to how-tos, tips and advice, all there. And then there's a separate playlist for stories if you're interested in what it's like to be in the astral plane. If you would like to learn from me personally, I have a service available on my website, ryancorpo.com. I have a couple of services. If you're an advanced person, maybe you just want to kind of tune up your skills a little bit, you can just get the simple astral projection advice, service. It's just an hour basically. But if you're brand new and you want to master this, and I preface, it takes a lot of dedication. You need to be serious about it. And I would really appreciate it if that's where you're coming from, if you're going to book this, because there's a large part of my time I'm going to be investing in you. I have a 6-month program, which often goes way past 6 months. I'm trying to get it a little shorter because it's just a lot of information. And I will literally tell you how to do it, but you can leave your body just as well as I can. We've had numerous people do that, which is nice. You've seen things from aliens moving through their wall. I want to say entities. Let's go with the ghost girl coming out of a closet and looking at them. And they haven't even astral projected at that point. They're just seeing things coming out, as well as to the many astral projections that they've experienced. And so that's fun. I enjoy doing that. And there's a lot involved there, not just with astral projection, but with your energy as well, because we have to really lay down a nice thick foundation for you to leave the body from. So we go through chakras, we go through a little bit of Neigong, a little bit of Qigong, a whole bunch of exercises for your concentration and just the initial opening up and laying down the foundation from a mental perspective too. Like we were going through earlier in your podcast, terms, not saying the words asleep or awake will just mess things up. You can have experiences saying those terms, but after a while, your brain's going to figure out what's going on. And it's going to put a stop to it. So you'll find you have most of your success in the beginning, but then all of a sudden you just can't actually project anymore. So it's like your brain's put up a new firewall. We go through many terms. There's more than just those that you need to tell yourself so that you can frame astral projection in such a way so that your subconscious mind can work with you. And so I'm like really in there with people. We have a group, a Telegram group, and I constantly update that with information. And we go back and forth with voice notes. I also have your own individual chat, so I can personally guide you and curate you based on what's happening with you. But that's something I'm really passionate about at the moment. And I need to just find a way to make sure that I don't keep overwhelming my students because it's a little much. And so maybe I'll refine it a little bit, trim some of the energy exercises and lean more into just keeping the astral projection information there, just so that it's easier for people who have very busy lives, I also have a 10-step conditioning process, which is the final process I rested on before I could just slide out as a kind of movement in the mind. And so that's available as a standalone course that you can get. You don't have to talk to me. You can just keep that and watch it over and over again and really instill this state of being inside of you. So that, like myself, you can get to a place where you can just lie down and just slide out. You'll probably have to do that conditioning process once a year, maybe twice, because depending on your lifestyle, say if you're partying a lot or your internal state gets thrown quite a bit, your energy is going to change. So you need to instill it in you a little bit more to make sure it stays the same. Other than that, those are the two main places to reach me. Did I say two? Yeah, YouTube and
your website.
My website. Actually, you can't reach me through my YouTube channel. They've removed that feature. Remember, it used to have an inbox?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess maybe they can comment, right? They can comment and
that's even kind of tricky.
Yeah.
Best ways would be through socials. So Instagram, Facebook, my website, the number one best way, because it'll go to my email inbox.
Fantastic. Well, Ryan, thank you so much. And folks, I mean, again, if you enjoyed this episode, like it, subscribe to the channel. If you see me on YouTube and Rumble, subscribe to the channel, send me a like, send some comments, say hello. If you are listening to me on Spotify or Apple, those 5 stars go a long way. It helps the algorithm and helps get this conversation out to other people so they can hear it, so they can benefit from it, so they can have a good time just like we did today. So don't be greedy. Don't be greedy. Share this information and share this conversation with your friends. I know each and every one of you knows at least one person that likes this stuff. So send it to that person and keep it going. As I remind you guys always, to continue to ask questions, keep looking behind that curtain, and continue to go beyond the frequency.